All right.
Howdy.
So it is 7:11. I have now acquired bourbon because I saw Mike drinking and I decided I needed one. So we are ready to get going. How's everyone doing?
Right?
Pretty good.
Recording in progress.
Good, thank you for asking.
Doing swell.
Excellent. We are recording this, so keep that in mind. We, want to make sure that we can share this with everyone else. Uh, First and foremost, thank you all who are able to be here, and those of you who are checking us out later. Everyone who's been involved in Convergence so far really appreciates the fact that that all of you, are willing to give us your time, because quite frankly, we wouldn't be able to do this without you. Not just that we can't play a game without you, but we appreciate that the idea of a new game and of a play test of a game is grindy and scary because you don't know if your new favorite thing is going to be there in 2 weeks. Um, we do have the best of intentions and intend to be around for at least a little while longer, at least until you know I get too old and die, or Chris dies before me. So, with that in mind, we do have a few things that we're excited about. First and foremost, we learned a lot out of last year. We thought it went very well. We were very happy with all of the positive feedback that we got, and quite frankly, all of the negative feedback we got. That has been a big part of what we've spent our winter doing. And we did need a little bit of time to decompress and move away from the amount of effort it took, because one of the things we learned was how much time it does take to not just run a game, but continue to write and improve a game at the same time. But we think we've come out of it for the better, and we're going to go through some of the things we feel that have come across very positively, some of the stuff that we don't think worked and that our feedback shows doesn't work, what we're going to do about it, and drop a few spoilers for next year. But a couple things that you should know: we do intend, we are still in a play test. We do intend to release at least 3 iterations of the game this year. One before we run any events, one about halfway through the year, and probably one at the end of the year. Our goal being to give you the winter, as opposed to this year where it's a relatively short period to look over the things that we're doing. But going forward from there, we're hoping that these are the big changes that we put forward, and everything else becomes fine-tuning. But like everything else, this is a process, and we want you guys to have a good game to play, and that is our intention. If we ever think we can't run a good game, we'll let you know. But one big change that is coming for this year, we do, as I said, we are going to release a new release of the rules before the first event. I'll get to when that first event is in just a minute. But just so everyone is aware, you can know after the first event, when you change your character, you are locked in for half the year. Until we issue another release, you're locked into whatever build you end up with. Partially because we want to see some consistency. We want people not to put together joke builds or niche builds that are very situational, in order to see how well things run. But also because we think that there is value in seeing, okay, I built this character and it worked, or this doesn't work, so I tried something different within the system. So that is one big change. No more changing characters event to event, or changing builds event to event. But we think you're going to be happy with some of the things that come forward from there. I see that there is already a question. Mike, I'll come back to your question towards the end of after we've given out some information. Okay. So, working through these things has been a challenge for us. we're very happy with the outcome, but obviously not everything went perfectly. We think there's a lot of good here, and we're planning on keeping going. Over the coming year, we do have, a big request. We're looking for some more help, beyond the sort of generic feedback and willingness to, do NPC shifts during events. We're looking for people who are interested in learning about running the game, and to focus in on that, primarily running the plot side of the game. We're looking for people who want to get involved on that side, to run mods, who have ideas about things that they'd like to see, play out in game, who are ready to step up and give us a bit of their time. In exchange for your help, we're obviously going to reward you, but we're also going to make sure that, you aren't going in blind. There's a lot of people out there that we have known over the years who said, I wish I could get involved in plot, but I don't know what I'm doing and I'm afraid to start. And so, our goal as part of this game is not just to write a rule set, but also to create a mindset, a philosophy for running the game where there is value from the top down on making sure that chapters run well or events run well. So if you are interested in getting more involved, let us know, because God knows we could use it. It turns out that writing the rules for a game is super stressful and taxing and takes a ton of your time. So the more help we can get, the happier we will be. That said, we are exceedingly thankful to Matt Waller and Bridget, who are going to be running a number of events this year, for helping us in that regard, which I guess kind of brings us to what maybe people are interested in. When are we going to get to play this game? After the last 2 years, we do have a season of 6 weekend events and one day planned out. I'm sure Chris is going to link this into the announcement or the general chat of the Discord server, so you don't have to write it down. But our plan is our first event is April 29th through May 1st in Chelsea, with another event in mid-May, the beginning of June. We're going to do a 1 day in July where we intend to be play testing a number of things that are going to go into the second iteration of the rules for the year. And then late August.
Maybe not. We may just try some stuff that we don't know will work. And
that's true.
Use that it'll be a kooky event where we'll probably mod per mod try different iterations of things, so we have some real experience versus a guarantee of this is a preview what's to come. Instead, we may just try some off the wall stuff just so we have some field experience and we can use it kind of as a trial ground. And if players have some kooky ideas as well about things, we can also maybe use that as a base to try some things out.
Yeah, thanks for elaborating on that. I was going to circle back and we'll touch on that a little bit more. But the goal being 3 events with 1 build, 3 events with a chance to rewrite, ideally. But in the middle, we're hoping to dip our toes in the water of a little bit of Appendix A, a little bit of stuff that we don't know if it'll work at all, and like Chris said, your ideas. The second half of the season is the end of August, the beginning of October, and the middle of November. That October event is going to be, as we have done in the past, our Dragon Reach event. And we will post the exact dates in the chat on Discord so that we don't have to walk through those. But we're looking forward to actually being able to get out. Hopefully we have a fairly normal year, presuming that the past 2 years don't come back to haunt us. Knock on wood. What did I say, Bridget? Did I say Dragon Reach event in October? I did mean Dragon Fall event in October. All right. So, see, this is why I shouldn't have had a beer and started the whiskey before we got going here. All right. So that gets us to the stuff that we think is going well Um, and that we're very excited about, that we thought we were concerned that wasn't going to work, that seems to be. As we are going through these things, we're going to kick in a little bit of feedback about the stuff that, our opinions of them. As we get to the end of this conversation, we're going to open the floor up to what everyone else thinks, and have a discussion about things. So, to start off, we are exceedingly happy with how well the role play skills have worked. We acknowledged from day one, we had no idea how that side of the game that we were putting together was going to work, and we are very pleased that you all have engaged with it, that it didn't turn out to be the world's worst thing, and that it does in fact seem to be something that is working very positively. We are also fairly happy with the way that we no longer had to, and this is more of a plot side comment, we no longer had to write cards for monsters that had obscene amounts of body because of the changes that we've made to passive damage and the way various classes can put out burst damage. Obviously, there are things in that equation where there will be adjustments. We aren't jumping up and down saying we solved it. We're the greatest, game writers ever. But we think that this is, broadly a system that is going to continue to get enhanced and continue to do well. We're very happy with the number of players who decided to join in on the idea of that archery doesn't suck. Although that we may have gotten too good at. Archery is really good, and so you should expect that there are going to be some changes in that vein, but they mostly tie into other changes that are forthcoming. And last but not least, we're so excited that the ongoing sort of rolling renewal system seems to be working very well. We never loved the idea of cramming everything in right before remem, or getting to remem and then bursting through a lot of skills. So thank you all for having the patience to figure that out, to understand that it, to see the vision we had for it and truly embrace it, and not just go, well, this is terrible, I'm just going to only sit down at the end of the day and relearn skills, because that definitely was a concern when we started out. I've talked a lot, so if any of the other owners feel like jumping in on some of these things that didn't work as well, please be my guest. But otherwise, I can already see Chad's head shaking no. So there are things that we don't love, and that are going to change, and we've got some good ideas, and we hope they play out well. When we built the rules, we lifted heavily from things that we've done before, and armor just isn't working. Let me correct that. Armor is working so well that it is better than body, better than hit points, better than anything else to have, and that's not going to work. So expect some changes coming to the armor system, and some fairly significant changes in one degree.
I do want to say that we really love that a lot of folks have embraced physical armor. So our intent isn't to go back to where everybody had like just costume on, and there was no sense in wearing physical armor, and so no one did it. We really like that there are folks in plate mail, that a lot of people are wearing chainmail. All of that we think is really positive, both just because, well, mostly because it looks cool, right? And that's the whole point. So we do want to. We're mindful that like we don't want to make armor so bad that it's not worth wearing. But it does need some changes. I think anybody who's pushing 120 armor or whatever on the reg knows that it's just not. It doesn't make sense in a low damage game the way it is.
Yeah, and I guess that is a bit consistent with some of the other places that we have seen issues. Like even in the things that didn't work, we have seen a lot of good moments We like the ideas. We like the way it's going. We haven't thrown the baby out with the bathwater, but there are changes coming. That said, it's a play test. If the changes don't work, if everyone turns around and goes, "This is terrible," we're mindful of that. We don't want to create a game that is our 5-person ideal that everyone else hates. We really want you to enjoy what's going on. So please, as we introduce these things, make sure you're giving us feedback and constructive feedback about that. And as Chris said, there's definitely going to continue to be benefit for those people who have invested in physical armor, because man, some of that stuff for your costuming really looks phenomenal. And for those of you who don't want to wear physical armor, don't worry. We're taking you into account too. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity here. Another big thing that we loved many of the interactions and hate the way that it's playing out is the stealth system as we have it. We were super excited that we spent a bunch of time finding a way to make the idea of stealth work, and it just hasn't played out. That said, we have another idea, and we're hopeful that this will work better, that we no longer will run into situations where someone is using a expert level skill and feels like they've gotten completely ignored and no value for it. So wait patiently as we get to the end of this. Maybe we'll spoil a few little things in that regard as well.
Yeah, I just think like stealth was like how Waylay is in other games, where there was like, for every great experience we had with it, there was also a truly terrible one. And I think like people using stealth at night when you just couldn't see them and then getting snuck up on, those experiences didn't feel good for anybody. I think players hanging around by NPCs who are kind of like out of game because they've got kind of freedom to walk around wasn't great. But we did see some like really cool uses of it. So both because we like it as a concept and because we think accessibility is important for people who aren't that good at sneaking, they should have a chance to play a rogue type character and experience sneaking around. So we definitely want to keep it as a concept. It just needs the rework. And I think we're in a good place now with it. In the new book. Currently.
All right. Another area where we feel like we have done a bit of a disservice is our goal was to give you a lot of options and flexibility, and we've discovered we've given you a lot of skills that you don't want, and a lot of very specific situational defenses that are just not fun, and places that you've spent EXP and gone, nope, not going to spend it there again because I never saw more than one of those. And so some of that stuff is going to change, and you're going to see fairly substantial changes there, where our goal is to make buying defenses feel useful, making sure that crafted defenses feel useful, that you don't feel like you've wasted a chunk of EXP on things that you're just not seeing enough of. In that same vein, we're looking to balance the innate skills. We really liked the idea of skills that were very easy to get back, because we knew that renewal was going to be a thing, because we wanted to make sure that people were able to continue to engage in things, because we've definitely all been miserable sitting there on a Saturday afternoon going, I can't do anything because I don't have the time to get, because I can't get my skills back. The problem, of course, is with a whole new concept, lo and behold, we didn't balance it that greatly. Some of the innate skills were fantastic, some of them were mediocre, some of them just never made sense to take, and so we are working on that slice of the skill pie to make sure that there are things there that are accessible, so that players are going to be able to do things with a fair amount of regularity, but we don't have such a drastic imbalance in the viability of different builds. Okay?
To answer Kristen's question, when he says skills not used, it means we're able to track in the database who takes, or like how many people have taken a skill. Since Chris is very good at like programming, we were very lucky to have a way to track all of that. So that's just means people don't even see it at the outset, or we can see it event by event because people changed. Like if people took it and then after a little while no one was taking it, it just didn't make sense. So that's what he meant by skills not used.
I mean, we gave you so many skills. There are literally skills that no one bought. So maybe there's such a thing as too many options. I'm not willing to commit to that yet, but it's a possibility. The last thing, and that really gets us to that question of options, and you know, in giving you so many options and letting you build whatever kind of character you want, we definitely laid, I won't say traps, but there were definitely places where people, as TC was saying, bought skills, had them, tried to make use of things, and then went, no, I'm not going to waste XP on this. And so, you know, one of our guiding principles as we have been going through the skills and trying to bring things up to date is to make sure that skills have value, that it's not so niche that you're, only one person's going to take it, or after taking it, you're going to say, oh God, I wasted 5 XP on this. I'm never, I guess I'm waiting till mid-season to get rid of that. So those are sort of the what didn't work from our point of view. As I said, we're happy to open the floor to your feedback on what you really think did work or didn't work. Would you rather we do that now, or give you some ideas about what's on the horizon? I don't see anyone unmuting to tell me.
I've unmuted myself.
Oh.
I'm excited to hear what's on the way.
What works and doesn't work right now. We'll go down like 800 rabbit holes and spin in circles for 20 minutes, and maybe this is the best way to do this. And I'm excited about other news.
Sounds good. So, one of the big things, we have undertaken a complete review of all the skills. We are going through them skill by skill by skill. And Joe, I'll answer your question in just a moment. We literally are going through things skill by skill and looking at where there are duplicates, looking at places where things stack, looking at places that are problematic for any number of reasons. But one of the guiding principles we're looking at is less things stacking, so that it doesn't require someone laying out 4 spreadsheets and going, okay, I want to do this, so I've got to take a little bit from here and a little bit from here and a little bit from here and a little bit from here. We're hoping that as we streamline the class skills, you're going to be able to look at them and say, okay, I want a character that does A and B, and be able to move through those 2 trees and not find yourself saying, I want to play a guy who does big burst damage, so I want weapons, and by the way, I've got to take all this magic stuff because magic is the most efficient way to get that burst damage. We're looking to make sure that that's a lot easier, but also have ways that people who want to play a unique character can find their path. And that, I guess, is one of the big guides that we ask when people are giving us feedback is, if you see something that we took out that you say, well, this means I can't do this, let us know, because we want you to be able to have the character you want to play. We've all played, in a game that essentially everyone plays some version of, 3 to 5 different character builds. We'd like things to be a little bit more interesting than that, and we think we've started that path, but obviously there's a lot of things here where, as I was saying, a lot of duplicative, a lot of things that are broken, or things that didn't get used because there was a better way to use them in a different school. We're trying to clean that up. We are also cleaning up skill concepts that don't work or that are duplicative. So ways where, for example, there were 3 different ways to get big burst damage, and they were relatively the same, and so one of them was clearly better than the others. Those are the sort of things that are going away. Another big thing that we heard a lot of concern about, we decided that maybe using 4-syllable words in our calls was a terrible idea, and we're sorry. We're sorry. Look, some of these words just sounded really cool when we said them, when we didn't have to say them in the heat of a fight and remember things. And when we didn't have to combine them with 3-syllable words. So we are undertaking a revision of those things, and also cutting down the number of calls. We
increased the number of calls.
Did we?
Yes.
I thought you told me we decreased those.
No.
We technically increased them.
So like, I think what worked really well is the whole like descriptive call thing. So like, if you could just unroll a call and you just by hearing it, you kind of know what it's doing. That was a big success. And so like calls will remain the same, but we're taking chances to cut words and slim things down however we can. And some of that includes breaking up things like command, which were like blah, 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 and like super long into just like their own effects. So it shouldn't add complexity to the game because these concepts are all here more or less, but it will cut down by like whole words for some of these. And so our effect list will expand just ever so slightly.
And Chris actually brings up a great example of that. So for example, any given taunt skill, was command, was normal command, attack me, whatever. Now it can be normal attack me. Attack is an effect. So when you hear attack me, that's as good as command attack me. So it's still, our goal is still for things to be easy for a new player walking into the game to understand. It is no fun to be the person who gets told, if you don't understand what's going on, just fall down. Because if you fall down, then I've been there. You feel kind of silly. Better to be able to say, oh, okay, I know what attack me means. I can do that. And again, cutting out those extraneous words to simplify things should make that a lot easier.
One of the things in the same vein that you'll see a lot more is that durations are going to be increased across the board. We had a really great hope that small durations mean that like people are playing the game more, and what we don't want is like, you can't move, stay there for 10 minutes and don't move. But we can kind of control that on the NPC side a bit, and bandaging will now include the ability to like remove all negative effects after 60 seconds. So we can maybe like do 2-3 minute status effects, and then you could just remove yourself from the fight, or somebody can remove you and bandage you to get you out in 60 seconds. The point being that like a lot of these like 10-second timers didn't stack up compared to damage, because why bother stunning its arm for 30 seconds when you could just outright kill it? And so to make those status effects useful and to have some tactical flavor on the field, we definitely need to like give people a chance to act on that guy who's got a stunned arm, especially if he's far away. And so it isn't just the NPC backing up for 5 seconds and then coming back to the front line. So I would, I'd expect durations to double, if not more, for most effects that generate them.
And by extension, when durations extend, no longer does it feel like, well, I can take 2 steps back for 5 seconds and not be affected by this, so I'm not going to buy defenses. So those areas are also going to hopefully see increased value for everyone. Speaking to Joe's question, so Joe had asked a couple of minutes ago, what do we get of the sense of magic and racing? So we love the myriad of different things that of different races our players have come up with, and the different ways that you found to build things. So we are hoping that we can maintain that in a strong way. That said, they need work. The racial skills in many cases were grossly imbalanced, where there was definitely, okay, I'm going to take this combination of things, and now there's a huge benefit to me with very little downside. That is part of this ongoing review. To be clear, as I say ongoing review, not all of these things are going to be in the... Chad, is everything okay?
Matt, just mute him.
There we go. Well, I was concerned. It sounded like...
Thank you. No, thank you. I just switched to my phone and things are crazy because my computer is acting up. Pardon me.
Okay. Not all of these things are going to be in the April release. Some of these things are mid-year releases. Some of these things are ongoing releases that we're trying to sort out, because we want to make sure that we're providing balance to these things. Because we want there to be a reason to play unique combinations of things, but at the same time, for people like, not for nothing, me and Chris, who just want to play an elf, you know, there should be a benefit for people who want to go big into something. You know, if you just want to do this, there should be a benefit. And we recognize that, you know, there was very little reason for players to buy into not creating a complex race, you know, combination.
Yeah, I think we're looking at attaching weaknesses to every race except common folk.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the archetypes work, it'll apply, but it's going to be generic. We've expanded, well, so far we think we've expanded the qualifier list to include a bunch of different types of flavors, including all the like elemental flavors, and then we'll also looking at adding steel and silver to the qualifier list, and then every race will be weak to 2 of those. And if you double stack a race, that weakness will grow. So it's like, you know, if you're an ice guy and then you're also a tree guy, which you can't combo, but whatever, you know, you'd be super weak to fire. That may not represent in like times 4 damage, but it may be something to the effect of like you can't call guard or you can't call avoids to fire effects. We're still kind of hammering out the details of what those weaknesses look like, but you know, that'll expect it. And so then inherently there's a benefit to playing a single race, or even a human, because you avoid more weaknesses that you have to take.
Or not that you have to take, but are just there.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
I knew what you meant. So races we're going to change. Magic also, our biggest complaint about Magic internally is you can do everything and there aren't enough downsides, which, you know, sounds fairly simplistic, but really our goal for Magic was, you know, when you use Magic, you can do whatever you want. Wizards are powerful when they have time to prepare, when they have information. So they should have the tools to prepare and then the flexibility. The problem that we ran into is they're too good at doing everything. And the way we are working to solve that is, I think, fairly simplistic. We're writing everything else first, and then when Wizards get it, it's just not as good. So essentially, Wizards, you know, we're building a skill set. Wizards get spell slots. The spells you purchase replicate, or as we put it, parody other skills, but they don't do it the same way. They don't do it as effectively. So, for example, where the Bruiser Tree gets some burst damage, the Wizard spell may get an amount of damage that isn't quite as high as that, and be able to break it up into multiple packet attacks. You know, so that there is a clear difference between one and the other. So if you want to play a wizard who's got damage, you've got that option, and you've got more flexibility in many ways than the Bruiser has, but you're giving up some of that raw power. if you know that you're going into a thing, where a bunch of stun legs is going to be helpful, you've got the ability to get stun legs. You're giving up other things, but again, there is a balance between where it is going to be as a build bot or an XP bot skill and where you get it as a spell. We're still nailing down the details of where those differences are, and being able to go forward from there. Does that make sense? Answer question? Mike, what more do you need?
I was answering how I felt about crafting.
Oh, about crafting. Oh, good, because I love talking about crafting. So crafting, we love the response to it. We love how engaged people are. We love that you've built things. One of the things about us rebuilding some of the rules, it has given us a chance to look at some of the innate skills and how they tie into build bot skills versus what we had hoped for them to become. So there are big changes coming for crafting. I don't know, Chris. How deep do we want to go into this?
I don't know. You can talk about whatever you want.
Okay.
We know what we want to develop. I think you can talk about what we want to develop. We don't have to tell them precisely what we're doing with it, right?
Sure. So here's broadly how crafting is going to start to look. We still intend to have a ton of options. We still intend for crafting to be the key to making everything else. We're not changing that. We are keeping the material system. We may simplify what gets used for what, because I may have gotten a little too in the weeds on that. Maybe that's a problem. And by maybe, I think, everyone can agree I got a little too detailed. But the long and the short of that being, it's still going to do a lot of things, but instead of doing them in the way that they are, where we had a bunch of enhancements that could be added to things, and you start to sort through, you're trying to figure out what makes sense to put on things. Every type of item, whether it's a sword, or medium armor, or an axe, or a banner, or whatever it happens to be.
Non-consumables.
Non-consumables, yes. Is going to have an effect that it can generate. And there is a skill that triggers that. So that if you have a sword, you have the ability to use that effect however many times you have the use weapon skill. And probably, but not definitely, the use weapon skill falls under use item. And various classes will have different iterations of it. So use weapon is a bruiser skill, and use armor is a defender skill, and use banner is a envoy skill. And maybe, rogues get use item, so they can use everything, but it probably will cost a little bit more for them to buy that. Sort of like use magic device to copy a concept. But the idea being, your stuff has a benefit, and there are some default benefits. So if you use an axe, you're going to have access to something that people who use a sword all the time don't have. If you use short weapons, you're going to have access to things that people with a polearm don't have, and vice versa. The crafting concept comes in because there are going to be a bunch of things that can just go on anything. So, for example, crafters are going to be able to put flame auras on things, and your use weapon skill or your use banner skill will allow you to attach that qualifier to something that comes out of to another skill. So we're hoping that this works out and addresses the idea of flexibility and gives people some more options, and cuts down on some of the overwhelming complexity that we definitely feel that I definitely put in there and made the mistake of. I'm willing to eat a little crow on this one. We're probably also going to cut down the number of things that are craftable, because there's just things on that list that no one's ever going to use or no one's ever going to find because they've got to sort through a whole book of it. There's still going to be a lot of options. There's still going to have more options than you've had in other games. But we're going to try to be a little bit better about finding things that, and again, eliminating niche defenses or situational things where you go, gosh, it'd be nice to have this in my pocket, but I'm not going to waste time looking for it.
Are you picking on my binder?
I'm not picking on your binder. I'm the one who made a binder. I think the fact that you all were willing to commit to a binder is great. I just think you should be able to play a semi-complex game without the need for a binder. Maybe a little notepad, like a little moleskin notebook.
Look, we gave Matt a task last year and he over-delivered.
Let's be clear. I'm glad there are binders, but I think you should be able to play this part of the game without needing a spreadsheet, because I also know that there are people out there who made spreadsheets, and I appreciate you, but I don't want to punish you.
So
no one should get that good at Excel.
Do you mind if I add on to what you're saying?
Please, I need a moment to have another drink.
Fair enough. So to double down on this, one of the things that makes me really excited about this idea of your tools having skills that you basically fuel is that it allows for an extra level of customization or even golf bagging, as we've liked to say in the past. But the only thing that you didn't touch on, the thing that really excites me about it, is how many different potential tools we're talking about. Like things that you can activate that belong to swords and axes, like Matt said, but also going so far as special skills that can only be activated by spell books and wands and staves and banners and potentially entertaining clothing and diplomat level dress and staves and two-handed versus one-handed versus short. Like, we can make a giant myriad of different things you can gain access to. Nothing to trump the skills you're actually, going to be investing in with XP. You're investing in your tool sets. They're not there to just, to take over, but they're there to be with you every time, sort of like what we achieved with innate skills, but controlled to what you have, but the only thing I really wanted to bring up was the myriad of things that we're looking at as far as, you can have a tool set. And it's a legitimate tool set. This one's built for crafting. This one's built for farming or harvesting. This one's built for, and you need to have that specific thing, that specific item, that specific tag, and then you get to use the skill on it, and then use the skill, that sort of thing, So if that doesn't make your imagination run wild, you should see the notes.
So
those are they're not done.
I'm sorry?
There are
you can't actually see the notes.
Yeah, that's like War and Peace in there.
See the notes. You cannot see how the sausage is made. You don't want to see how the sausage is made. Just be comfortable that the fact that we are in multiple time zones and separated by distance has stopped at least one rampant unchecked stabbing. All right, so those are some of the big things that are coming. It is our hope, because we have an event at the end of April, which is weeks away, that our first release of this will be within the next couple of weeks. I'm not giving us a hard and fast deadline, but we got to get something, to you so that you know what's going on, so that you can build characters for events at the end of April. And we look forward to seeing you at that point and being excited about these things. And, it's our responsibility to follow through and make sure that you get the tools you need to enjoy our game. So, with that in mind, a couple of other things. I mentioned earlier we're looking for volunteers for things. If there are people out there who are looking at, how can we be helpful? How can we help you? As we write things, we're going to need people to proofread. We're going to need people to look things over and make sure that we haven't repeated ourselves 3 times in 2 different sections of the document. We're looking for people who can give us, grammatical feedback. We're also, want to know if there's things that you've thought about from the last year that you haven't sent to us. Now is the time to get those in, because if we don't know about it now, we are not going to know about it in 4 weeks. We're not going to know about it in July. To fix things. And with that in mind, the more insight that you can give us into concerns, the better. I mean, it's well and good to say, I didn't enjoy this, it doesn't feel fun. Like, we understand it doesn't feel fun. That to us is kind of a guiding principle. Is this fun? Is a question we ask ourselves a lot. But at the same time, when someone says to us, I don't like this because it makes my character worse. Well, how? Does it make your character worse because you can't play the concept that you want to play? Or was your character really good and you liked being able to shine in the way that you did, and that was more a symptom of the skills being broken, and you just want to make sure that you aren't being relegated to the second tier, that we aren't overcorrecting. Those are areas where it's important to us to have context to your feedback. All feedback to us is helpful, but knowing that you are understanding why we're making changes is important to us. Because, for example, someone who says, well, I want to be able, just broadly, you've changed how I can do burst damage, and I can't find a way to do the character concept I have. Great, we can come back to you and help you, or we can turn around and say, oh man, we missed this. We missed this idea that people find fun. Let's make sure we correct that. But if your answer is, I want to be able to throw maxed out innate evocation all day long because, man, that was super good, you're right. It was super good. It was so good, it was better than a lot of other ways you could build a character. So we can't just leave that in the game. So help us help you, and we're happy to explain, okay, this is why we're making the change. Give us time, because, we got a lot on our plate, because we also have lives outside of the game. I think other than that, just a quick nickel tour the state of the chapter and the game. We're fine. We've been very fortunate that you all have been generous. You've helped us put together a pretty good a pretty good monster camp. There are some things that we may, be looking for in the coming weeks and months as the locks on the trailer thaw out, and we're able to investigate, what, may have, been in a little rougher shape over the winter. But we do a pretty good job of maintaining this stuff, and because we're thankful that you guys are willing to help us out. We can keep running events without spending too much money out of pocket. So in that regard, thank you very much. Other than that, nothing has really changed. To be clear, we've said this a number of times in the past. This is something we do not because it's a good business, but because we really enjoy having this hobby and playing this game, or playing whatever game it is, with everyone else who plays it. We didn't make any money this year. We didn't make any money last year. We didn't make money the year before that. But we like you guys, and we don't lose money too quickly. So, plus now TC's in on it, so we split our losses 5 ways.
Well, also the money goes back into the game. It's not like we're throwing money up in the air, Matt.
That is true. I suppose I should clarify. We are broadly, but not broadly. We are narrowly profitable, in the sense that we make it through, and it doesn't cost us more to run the game itself. That said, we all spend money on it, and we appreciate the money that you donate or the props you buy us and the things that you've done, because that is very helpful. So that is the state of that, as much as I really feel like I want to talk about it. Has someone been looking through the chat who wants to know, or who wants to give me some questions?
The character lock-in was one that we've partially addressed.
Yeah, it's not like we're trying to be monsters and like make you be in a bad build. There's like Spirit Forge is like fairly easy to buy or like cast. So like we just want the game that to start mattering.
Spirit Forge is easy to cast, and Chad and I have even talked a little bit about the fact that maybe we should have talked a little bit more about the cost relationship between what it takes to make a reagent for a ritual and what the book says. So
Plus,
it'll probably be more efficient to cast.
Plus, we've only got so much data based on the fact that everybody knows that nothing is permanent, meaning that you can play with the skills all last season, but now there's a different mindset and there's a different, whatnot to very specifically knowing and testing and seeing what reads well. And because don't forget that a major facet of this game is also about the brand new person who comes in, who looks at a book and can say, oh yeah, that's what I want to be. So we need that information. We need to know what people want to seriously play and what seriously bothers them. And we need to give every caveat for you to tell us what does and doesn't work. And so we've got to change how you can in order to get the data to make it better, if that makes sense.
If I can chime in, I think people were, and myself included, looking for clarity. Are we locking in prior to the April event or prior to the May event?
You're going to build your character, and you will not be able to unbuild your character when the new rule set comes out.
Also, why is GJ looking for an 85-inch pole arm?
Because he fucking texted me like randomly to ask stupid questions, and it's a stupid question, and that's what he's known for.
Okay, I'm just checking because I was under the impression that most most latex pole arms were only 75 inches. Is he looking to stack?
He's not going to use a latex pole arm anyways.
Wait, this is.
That's why I put it in the chat and I didn't bother.
You can get a 9-foot-4 if you want.
I mean, you guys are just germaphobes, aren't you?
I do not want.
You're germaphobes. This is all like, I won't touch you with an 11.5-foot pole. That's what you really need. You want to run at us with the greatest middle tent stake of all time?
I'm just saying that's the range of a bow. At that point, you might as well just pick up a bow.
Look, if you can only throw a pack at 85 inches, you need to spend some time throwing, as Chad would say, throwing packets of Post-it notes.
I mean, seriously, they pay athletes to carry poles that large, but they use them to launch themselves over buildings.
Hey guys,
So I want to talk about one thing that
Sure.
when I played that I didn't it felt really bad, and one thing that I think we
Ooh, this is
fixed
a good one.
is that I had Cower, which is a ranger, maybe, or maybe it was rogue.
I think it's a ranger.
I think it's ranger skill. It's a master skill, right? And it's just like, I think it's ignore me encounter, right? And I used it on Matt, and he just stepped back, and I missed it, and it felt like the worst experience in the entire fucking planet. So to kind of make these one-off, especially higher level skills useful, we've done a couple things. So if you outright miss or it's blocked on any skill, you can regenerate that skill when you're resting like an innate skill. So you can spend time, like one of the buckets will be like skills you missed. And so even if it's a master skill that I biffed, when I go to rest, I can just get that back in 10 minutes, or I don't know if we're going back to 15 or whatever, but you can get that back quickly. Additionally, Renew got a Renew missed. So somebody like either Envoy or Div Mage can come up and renew a skill that you missed. And then also, we've added Renew Defended. So if you use a cool master skill, and some Envoy can just renew that if a bad guy calls a defense to it. So we're trying to make those per single use per skills like really feel good, and if they don't feel good, you have avenues to get them back faster, so you're not like crying in the woods in Traverse City alone because Matt stepped back and you now have to waste an hour and a half on something that probably wasn't even that good to begin with.
We're not going to call it biffed, Gabe.
Let's be clear. When Chris says Matt stepped back, I am not agile enough. It definitely was Matt Waller who stepped back out of the way and avoided getting.
No, it was you. You like
Oh man, I was trying to give you
backwards.
credit. I didn't realize it was even me.
Yeah, I pretty much did play a combat card that event, so.
If you play Dark Souls, the term is with punishing.
So Evan, you asked about magic damage builds playing second fiddle to physical damage builds in a system where magic is effectively given the scraps and leftovers. I don't think we're going to end up there. The other thing to remember is the default qualifier for things is normal. And most things are going to be normal. When you are using magic, when you are using spells, your default is magic, which hits everything, even the trailing cloaks, even the weapons, even the shields. So there is a trade-off there where, yes, you may not, and I'm using this as a not true example, if a basic Mighty Blow does 20 damage and a basic damaging spell does 2 packets of 5 or 3 packets of 5, you still have an advantage in the fact that as long as you hit that person with that packet, you're good. That person who's swinging a Mighty Blow can still have it blocked by a weapon, blocked by a shield. So that is one of the trade-offs we're looking at, but we are cognizant of that concern. Of we do not want it to feel like flexibility gives you inferiority. We want there to be the balance of flexibility versus strength. Yeah.
Just kind of my because get a word in here. The Travis did actually talk about it, and we kind of went back and forth in the comments. So that question was kind of answered. My concern was in not burst damage, because burst damage it's very easy to be like, oh, I'm gonna hit you with like 30 that you can't block, versus a Mighty Blow which you just bat away with your shield is very different. It's when it comes to consistent damage, like against archery, and Travis did comment on that. It was like if I'm gonna be throwing like from a ranged anyway, and I could just chuck 5s behind my shield wall for 50 minutes versus going like I'm gonna throw 5 big things of 30. The mileage on one of those is infinite. The mileage on the other one is...
Yeah, let's talk about passive damage for a second, because I think that's just a problem across the game. We're gonna slim down passive damage just a little bit more, and archery is going to have like a lower cap. We don't need a cap with the way we've rewritten all the skills. There won't be like a limit, but archers will just have a lower upper level, so melee weapons will do more, given like a maximized situation than archery, because static damage is a real problem, even with two-handers or swords or whatever, compared to like a character like a mage who can only do things a finite amount of time. So we're cognizant of that. Additionally, the way armor is probably going to work is instead of providing like HP, it'll provide mitigation. So like you will be able to subtract 3 or 4 from every hit if you're wearing a good suit of armor, and that will make an archer who's throwing a lot against a high armor target not as good, whereas like a mage can come up and, because like per hit skills are dealing in higher numbers, that mitigation is largely unimportant to these per hit skills, and so magic should feel good against archery, because armor really doesn't, I mean, it's going to subtract some damage, but it doesn't subtract a ton, especially with higher throw stuff, and I think those things should help the passive versus mage thing, because even beyond just archery, I just think like passive damage is really good, and it's a source of a lot of conversation amongst us, because we want people to be able to always do stuff, and it's cool, and we like it as a concept, but like I think we've all seen, almost everybody here has played games where we've seen how bad passive damage can ruin stuff because it's the only game in town, and that's not what we want.
I wonder to what extent you're talking about like threshold for armor, maybe?
No, or talking about
not threshold, but like DR.
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder at what point it becomes inefficient and would that if what monsters are walking around with like DR2 and and you're throwing like 5s. You're throwing 3s, and that's fine. But if monsters are walking around with like DR 3 or 4, and you're throwing 1s, why be an archer ever?
Because
you're always taking 1 from every hit. So I mean, not every monster is going to have armor, right? That's true now, and you're still going to get 1 through, and also you should be an archer because you've got a bunch of passive skills and stuff to deal with those situations too. It's just, more about burst damage than passive damage.
Got it. Well, I mean, I can't make any further comment until I see the rules and see how they work out. So those were just my concerns. So thank you for addressing them.
Yeah, and I hope you don't feel that we're trying to minimize them, but they are things that we're looking at, and because they're things that we fought about internally. Like I said, we've definitely avoided at least 1 rampant unchecked scatter.
And I'd like to point out, that, Evan, to your point, no one's going to know until we see it play out. And that's one of the big things that's happened to us this last year. We thought we could run a game and play a game, or run a game and write a game at the same time. And we can't, because there are so many variables. We can make stuff up and we can learn from our mistakes, but at the end of the day, everything we put on the field plays differently than we expected it to, because you can't account for so many different things. And so theorizing is extraordinarily limited, even with a lot of experience. That's something we're walking into this season with open eyes on. So we're very, very, we're making up a bunch of stuff, changing stuff based on what we saw last year, but we're going to be extraordinarily flexible moving forward. That's why we want to write, instead of playing the game for a year and then rewriting the rules, we want to make a bunch of changes during the season, because we intend to, our cups are empty. We want to learn from the things that we see on the field.
And that ties very much into, just to have a quick sidestep into a comment Brooks just left us, which talks about needing to lock in April without a good look at the rules feels bad. On one hand, I completely understand where you are coming from. On the other hand, we need data, and to answer this the best way I can, we're not going to let you have a bad time. If someone comes back to us and says, I built this character, it doesn't work. Here's why it doesn't work. Your rules are broken. I don't think we've ever demonstrated to you that we're monstrous human beings. At least not collectively. I mean, individually, I know I am not a good person, but TC balances that out. But the point being, if there's a problem, let us know. We're not like, this is not. I don't have a good metaphor. I'm sorry.
We're just human beings, right? Like, we're here to play a game and have fun.
Right.
This isn't to punish people. It's so that we have a game with consistency. I think that's important for people developing roles and playing that, because if you're the cool sneaky rogue guy and then somebody changes to be the cool sneaky rogue guy from under you, that's not a good experience. So there are several ways to Spirit Forge yourself and get skills back already in the game that just we don't even know what that looks like, because we've been giving everybody the chance. And if you really made a mistake and your character is super duper unfun or whatever, we can have a conversation about that. I'm not above that sucks, I don't want you to sit there and just have a bad time, because maybe you can't afford a Spirit Forge or whatever, and that in of itself is data take. So we're not, it's not a punishment to anybody, but also we do need to start moving towards having a real less playtesty game, and so this is a step in that direction, right?
Yeah, and if you remember, things that massively didn't work, we changed throughout the year. So it's not last year. So moving into this year, if something that we change massively doesn't work, we're not going to lock you into something that is terrible. We of course are going to work with you. Just try and trust in us, and we will try not to screw you over with your builds. We are all playing, we make sure that for a reason that there's some of us that are PCing versus NPCing, so that we can get the two sides as well, because that is a different data point. So like there's lots of things that go into it, but Chris is absolutely right. The more we know, because like someone changing, like I mentioned earlier with like data points, if someone is constantly changing, it's harder to see if like something is working, or if someone hates something, or if it's just you bouncing around to try out new things. So we get a different amount of knowledge from that.
I kind of want to jump through and touch on some of what we've changed, just because I think it's interesting to give you more of that. So on top of adding a bunch of qualifiers, Devastating is going to become dire, and it will only be able to be defended against with guards. So that is like its own thing now. That's special, and it's easier to say. We renamed the concept of breaking point to wounded, so you're either wounded or you're not, because breaking point is a lot of words. We split up command. We got rid of command and charisma. Charisma became charm, and it's largely simpler. And then command split into a lot of sub effects like attack and ignore. Matt mentioned attack. Ignore is going to kind of be like our answer to stealth, but also do other things, and it's got some looseness. Execute, by default, we got rid of like 2 and above breaking point, or 2 breaking point, below breaking point, 2 breaking point. Instead, execute if you're wounded, you die. If you're not wounded, it makes you wounded, and then it's still got like unarmored and death. Let's see what else. Guards will only go off on things that affect you negatively. So we're just gonna get rid of this whole like, oh, you got a guard on you for healing on the ground thing. There are some cool concepts there, but I think ultimately if we want a game where people can like mass buff and stuff, or use some of these cool radius skills, when we were playing at the final fight on the Traverse City event, we did all that team buffing. Not everybody was there, but between me and Joe and a couple other people, we did like super buffing, and we got some wrong information that we thought they were going to be casters, and so we buffed everybody for magic 2x, and then Travis used like the equivalent of 3 hours of rest time to like try to mass heal and buff everybody, and all it did was trigger all the guards. And so like me and him almost got in a fist fight over it, because
to his great credit, I was being a complete idiot.
You're being an idiot, and you just wasted my time. And then he was like, what the fuck, I'm trying to do a cool thing. And it was like, that was a bad experience. And so we just, after like some soul searching about like the tactics of this whole guard and their downside, we kind of just decided that like, let's just cut that part of the game out and just let guards only trigger on negative things and not fret about it. That way it's a better defense, and that mass buffing can happen and people can use radius powers and stuff, and it's just, then generally getting buffed is a good thing, and there's not really a downside to having them. Other than that, I think that's everything I want to talk about that's changing.
Yeah, I mean, we've hit on the big things. We're not looking to dump on people. We're not looking to make things terrible. So far, we're not talking about blowing up everything and just having a bonfire in my backyard to burn the trailers. So I think we've got at least another couple of years in us.
Maybe.
But don't say those things. It makes.
Well, I just might die. Like I don't,
That's true.
Crazy.
That's true. The older Chris gets, the more likely it is that he will die.
Only
the rest of us are feeling great, but Chris is starting to feel the depredations of age.
You're the only person I know who can say 2 negative things and make it a positive immediately. It's like, no, I don't know if I can do that, but then you immediately follow up with, well, if I stop existing, then I'll stop playing. That's a weird way to get to a really positive thing to say.
Somebody might go back in time and kill me when I was a baby, or my parents or something, and then I could just not exist, and then what?
I told you I gave up the experiments a long time ago. We're stuck with each other.
But you're here now. If someone was going to kill you, they would have done it already. You wouldn't have never existed.
Unless they haven't done it yet.
something grandfather paradox?
No. We'd still be like.
I did do the nasty and the pasty.
The argument you're making, we'd still be stuck with you. Their timeline would be fixed. We'd still
That's
be forked.
Only if you believe in that kind of time travel. I forget what the
Hey,
name
I'd
is.
like to point out that I already traveled back in time and killed all the people that we don't like, and that's why everybody in the community is awesome.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Does anybody have, now that we're kind of fucking around, does anybody have any questions, or is there something else anyone wants to talk about? Or
yeah, are there other things
that isn't time travel related?
Yeah, you mentioned that you're looking to have more people on board helping. You mentioned proofreading and running plots. Is there anything else that you're looking for, and how do people get involved with those? What do those two things look like?
We're fairly loose about what those things look like. So I would love to see more of the community, like people like, hey, I've got this idea for a mod, and you come and run 1 or 2 mods in a weekend. We don't need a full commitment, but like that is much more helpful, especially because like we're writing these rules and like content running them. Like I can't, I'll die if I have to do what I did again last year, and I won't have any friends left, and I'll become much of a meaner person. So content in any form is helpful. So, I know you're a fairly prestigious dungeon master, but like we're happy to train you to take. I think we probably want to see stuff ahead of time, not just have people running like unwritten mods. But like we'll spend time as much as we can to help anybody who's interested. Run a successful mod or run a successful series of mods. I always encourage people to start small, like make an orc battle or a goblin battle fun as your first couple of things, because if you can do that, there's a lot of like core learning things to do. If you can do that really well, then you can have a 5-year storyline about a dragon who hides pieces of his shell in the future, and you got to go through time to collect pieces of his shell so you can hurt his shell, so you can now bring him to your level so you can kill him eventually.
Go ahead.
I even recommend like people who have done plot in the past but haven't done it for an exceptionally long time, to kind of go back into that, like start at the basics and rework, because it's a different kind of game, and like it's just a good way to learn. But to answer your other question that you asked, is just reach out to us, and if you want to volunteer, just reach out. If there's other ways you want to help out, include that in like when you reach out to us, and let us know what you have in mind. Okay.
And if you're worried about building stuff for intricate worlds and whatnot, or you're worried that we're not going to take it in, that's one of the reasons for the early conversation. But you don't necessarily have to write things. Like, for example, if you want sort of a tutorialized, or you want to get your swing back in, you can always go to the plot team and ask to be something like what we usually end up calling some kind of like monster lieutenant or something along those lines. And that's where someone like me on plot of that weekend says, okay, here's a mod. It's written, here are the cards, go run it. And you don't need to put in any of the extra work. You come to us, we give you the tools you need, and then you get to go swing the bat and find out what works, what doesn't, what did you crash into, that sort of thing. And they don't need to be heavy-handed. Like, we're not looking for heavy-handed stories, and right now we're looking for things to fill in the gap, because fill in the gap stuff is fun. Or maybe if you're willing to do a big major commitment, then you can join a team. But if you're worried about what I'm going to write or what I'm going to do, that doesn't have to stop you. It's not just about getting bodies to be punching bags for NPCs. Having a marshal on the mod, or being in control of a mod that's already written down for you, can teach enormous lengths, as I'm sure quite a few people here can already know. So we're not turning away any of that stuff. And don't be disparaged if we come back to you with a whole lot of notes going, hey, this has to interact with the world. You need to change this one thing. Here's a bunch of suggestions, and let's talk about it. It's not going to be a negative thing. You're not just going to be turned loose. We can even set up settings to put you in some big neutral zone so that you don't touch other things if that's going to be a big comfort to you. We just want people to experience this, because the more you know about playing the game, not only do you take stress off us, you take stress off of everything, because everyone gets that, they understand the methods of what's going on and what's being communicated on an out-of-game level, and when that becomes intrinsic, then it stops breaking your immersion, and now everybody is just losing less stress across the board, if that last part makes sense.
Ultimately, we want to increase community engagement, right? We keep talking about how we're this great community, and so we want people to experience this part of the game.
Did you raise your hand?
Yeah, because so
Another way that you can help, if you aren't interested in running plot of any kind, is that we need help for tavern. If you are interested in running tavern for an event, for a meal, for a couple of meals, please send me a direct message, private message, whatever it's called in Discord. What? It's called different things on different platforms. Don't
You're
laugh at me.
asking them to slide into your DMs, Bridget. Continue.
Sorry, Joe's laughing at me. So again, you don't have to necessarily commit to an entire event. It can be just for a meal for an event, but we need people who will help volunteer to run tavern. And Evie is not able to do Dragonfall Feast this year. Thank you so much for all the years that you've done it. It's been wonderful, but Evie is not able to do that this year, so we will also need someone who to volunteer to do that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a big feast. You don't have to take it to the level that Evie did, but we still need someone to cook for that event. So if you, again, are interested in volunteering, please contact me. Catering, hey, we can cater from Olive Garden if that's what people want. I am okay doing that.
Chris ideas. Don't give Chris ideas.
I was running
from Gabe.
I was running the math on. Well, it's because I give this big college level lecture about how we should all go to Olive Garden, like 20 of us, and then buy 6, because you can like buy take-home meals that are like whatever. Yeah. We should all buy 6 take-home meals, and then we can have Dragonfall be catered by Olive Garden because it just makes fiscal sense.
Delightful.
Right.
Anyway, so please get a hold of me if you're interested, and I'll put this up on Discord, and maybe we can also, if whoever has controls in Discord can make a little tavern section, that would be appreciated as well. Thank you so much. I'm going to shut up now.
Not a problem. I'm sure that someone, because I was chuckling when you were talking about what the messages to you were called, because I don't know. So I'm sure someone can figure that out. But yeah, I mean, all of these things, if there is something you think would be good, that you think you can do that will help us, contact us. Say, hey, I know how to do this. I think this is where it fits in. Can I help? We may say no, but we appreciate the effort. Or we may say, oh, great, here, have a bunch of things to do. So, other questions, concerns, things that that you want to know more about?
Yeah, maybe you said this already and I missed it, but if Bridget and Waller are doing some of the events down here, are we having Traverse City events this year?
So, as Bridget was just putting into the chat, there are going to be a number of events at Camp Pinewood, which, if I am not mistaken, is a little north and west of Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
So is it less of a northwest, or it's?
So I think this idea of chapters is kind of archaic and probably not something we're really going to have. Instead, we'll probably switch to more of a campaign model, which is like less geolocation based and more about who's running the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just because the truth is, like, it's convenient to do stuff all over the place, and we're at least small enough right now, and maybe those geolocation blocks aren't actually super healthy for the game. That other, like, the franchise spots may not even be super healthy. I think just like the campaign model lets somebody run some games for a year and then is like, I'm telling all the story I want to tell in 1 year, and then I'm done, and that's okay. Maybe that's something we want that play style. So I think we will probably have a good talk about what franchising looks like and stuff after we're in a better place with the rules.
And that campaign is doing a lot of heavy lifting for us. We knew it was going to be a lot of work trying to develop a game and then run it. We didn't realize how debilitatingly, how much that would just crush us. So yeah, we need that time this year not to develop, prop monsters as much as we needed to actually write things down. So Waller's campaign is a massive, massive help to us in ways that are hard to talk about even in a full meeting. So This kind of thing is critical.
I do have a little treat for you guys too after the meeting, so check Discord.
Ooh.
Is it lemon flavored cookies?
It is not.
It is now.
Shit.
Nice.
There might be some sort of little like teasing thing that teases things about something that's upcoming.
Ooh.
Could be anything though, even lemon cookies.
It could be anything. Look, all I'm asking from people who run the tavern is lemon flavored desserts.
Apparently Corey's in.
Also, you need to then also make special desserts for Chris and Travis and TC and Chad. Although, if I recall correctly, Chris, Travis, and Chad are all very content with chocolate cake.
I am also on the
lemon
train.
Yeah, so that's 3 of us, so it's all lemon.
There we go.
Oh,
Majority rules.
I quit.
We have that one veto policy where if one person says they don't like stuff, they can veto everything, and bitch, you best believe this is the first time we're going to use it.
That's not fair because TC hates peanut butter. That's literally I'm out.
All right, circling back before we degenerate this, before you bunch of degenerates degenerate into another time travel conversation. Any other questions, concerns, comments that you guys want to bring to the floor? We're happy to address. No? Going once, going twice. Sold. Well, again, thank you to everyone who came out for this town hall. We miss seeing you. We're really excited about being able to play. Again, touch wood, make sure that we know that make sure that we're being positive about getting out to things. But be prepared to be flexible because, if things go sideways, obviously, we're going to do our best to keep everyone safe, and that's, more important to us than getting to play more. That said, you are welcome to ask us questions later, Ben, or anyone else who is looking at this later, and we'll be able to move forward. Yes, Travis?
Boosters?
Oh, we
That's
will
a good
be
call.
requiring booster shots. Just like before, so you can send it, I believe, send it in with your registration when you do it. Yes, Annette.
I just wondered how recent the booster shots need to be because mine was in December or something.
We're gonna just follow the CDC guidelines for doing things in
Yeah,
places.
if
So
you can
if they had I assume, although we haven't talked about this, if the CDC starts recommending 4th shots, which I suspect they will, that will become our policy. Although we'll probably have some wiggle room if it mid-season happens. You'll have to get it within. We'll probably switch over. But the CDC is a lot smarter than I am, so we'll just do whatever they say.
And also for the couple of you that joined late, we are recording this, so if you want to go back after, we can obviously show you what you missed.
Any other questions or concerns? Great. Well, I'm going to stop recording now. I'm going to encourage Travis to do the same, and same for Matt Waller. Because I think we're going to start playing some Jackbox games. So if you want to stick around and play some games with us, great. If you don't want to play games with us, fine. We know who you are.